Well, I wanted to ask you about some guitar stuff. My good
Sure.
friend Ale told me, Ale Levy told me I should ask you about One,
um,
the
y-
Metallica song.
yeah, one was that record came out in 1988, and that there was a particular song, the song called One, and there was a particular part right in the middle of the song where you hear the drums, the kick drums, and the guitar riff syncopated together, and it goes
It sounded so fucking cool.
that one little piece, and it's the
Yeah,
only time I ever heard it, right?
yeah,
And any of Metallica records. And I was like, I was just thinking back then, like, why can't they do more stuff like that?
yes.
So by the time 1990 came around, a couple years later, I was like, I need to start a band that's just all that. And that's pretty much what I did. Everything's pretty much syncopated.
Right. I mean, that idea of doing like the chugs with the kick in unison, like everybody does that now and it seems so obvious, but nobody fucking did that really before you guys.
um, Dark Angel had a little
Yeah,
bit of
that's
that,
true. That's
and a
true.
little bit of that as well. But
But you
very
guys just
little.
went all in on that in a way that I
Yeah,
don't think anybody else did.
yeah. Very few bands had it, and if they did have it, it was just pieces. It was
Yeah.
never like the main focus of a whole album.
And
You
with
know what I
that
mean?
level of like just super, super, super clear precision that you guys had. Like I love
Yes.
Dark Angel, but they were not as like surgically precise as Fear Factory.
Yeah, we know I was coming up in the LA scene, a bunch of local bands I was in, grind bands, crossover bands, crossover metal punk type bands, and even Brujeria was also one of my early bands as well.
Yeah,
Um,
which I definitely want to talk about.
yeah, but I wanted to get into something different, and I wanted to do that idea of syncopated kicks and guitar, and I needed to find a drummer like that. So one day I met Raymond Herrera, and Raymond's like, "You're a guitar player. I heard about you. There's a guy who has a band living across the street. They're called Excruciating Terror. You
Yes,
should
love
join
them.
that. You should join that band." So I went and joined the band for a month. Right? They lived across. We rehearsed across the street from where Raymond lives, and so one day the drummer didn't show up, but Raymond showed up, and the other guitar player said, "Hey Raymond, why don't you get behind the kit?" So Raymond gets behind the kit. He's like, I'm like, "Holy shit, this guy can fucking play." So I literally quit Excruciating Terror, and I convinced Raymond, let's start a band.
I did not know you were an excruciating terror.
Yeah, literally for 1 month, I did one show, and I
Okay.
quit because I just knew that this wasn't the direction that I wanted to go. Right?
Excruciating terror is awesome, but pretty gnarly shit.
Yeah, I just knew I just had bigger dreams, bigger
Yeah.
hopes, and bigger ideas, different ideas. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so I also had a band with Burton. It was called Ulceration. That was like a total ripoff of Godflesh, tuned down really low, you know, just hammering, just groovy, heavy riffs. Burt doing that Godflesh type of voice. And I was like, this guy's dope. So when I got Raymond, I said, I got to get Burt in this band. And so that's what I did. And that's how us three got together. And then took that one, that song one, that one particular sound,
Right.
and boom, just ran with it.
There was such a cool kind of like grind death metal scene in Southern California at that
Big,
time, which
big.
I was sort of, I was friends with Chris Elder from Despise You and Pessimizer. And so he kind of put me onto a lot of that stuff. And I was in high school then, kind of watching all this from afar. But it was such a cool and interesting scene because it had this sort of like really grimy, Whittier, East LA sort of quality to it. It's like, oh, like a lot of the guys were like, semi gang member type dudes, it's just
Totally,
such an
totally,
interesting vibe.
totally. And a lot of them were gang
Yeah,
bangers. You know what I
exactly.
mean?
You
But
see
they
like
they just got
the,
into
the,
it.
the people that show up to like Fiesta Grande to go see Excruciating Terror and all the, punk dudes would be like, who the fuck are these guys? Like, is
Well,
this safe?
I've been to a backyard show where I saw Terrorizer play and people doing stage eyes off the roof of the house.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I didn't get to see a lot of that stuff, but I remember just kind of observing that scene from afar, and it was like it was really cool. I don't know if that still exists, but that was such a cool
it
moment. And
does.
I think it's interesting to me that Fear Factory kind of came out of that because it's almost like the opposite of you guys in so many ways. Because Fear Factory is so clean and precise, and that stuff is just so fucking filthy.
Well, we had a lot of influences that pretty much developed our style. I mean, I was trying to copy a sampling machine. You know what I mean? Where you sample the guitar and you loop it over, and you can
Mm.
hear the guitar truncate and start over. So I
Uh-huh.
was trying to copy the machine. I was trying to do that. I was also into techno music because a lot of times we played backyard parties in East LA. Then after the metal show was over, the DJ would come in and start playing techno. So I started getting into techno and stuff, and I was like, that's a cool synth riff. So I was copying synth riffs, but just making them all heavy and brutal that you wouldn't know where the influence came from. You know what I mean? And just
Right.
so our influences are from everywhere. From everything from Godflesh to techno to industrial to goth to 80s new wave. All that stuff was happening really big in the late 80s, early 90s in LA. I mean, you had bands like The Cure and Morrissey playing Dodger Stadium. You know what I mean? I mean,
Right. And
that
there's the
stuff was
whole like rave, underground rave scene going on then too.
exactly, and all that was one big melting pot of music for us, and we just try to take a little bit from here and there and here and there, and just kind of develop our own style.
I was kind of trying to warm everyone up here before this interview by explaining some of this, but it's like it's really hard for anybody who's younger to appreciate how just fucking wildly different early Fear Factory sounded back then. Like Solo New Machine, it didn't sound like anything. It was like alien music. And
Well,
it's really hard to describe that to anybody that might be younger.
but remember, we had a record a year before that didn't come out till 2002.
Yes,
That
yeah,
was even
which
a
was
year.
like
It was like 1991.
it's wild to me that Ross did that too, because it's so he's not known for doing stuff that heavy, and that's like some really heavy shit.
Well, going back even further than that, 1987, I had a band called the Douche Lords, and we were basically lyrically we were like the Mentors,
Uh-huh.
but musically we were like SOD, totally SOD. And Ross produced that demo as well.
Oh, really? Is this can I find this on YouTube or anything?
Nope,
Oh, okay.
nowhere yet.
That's
I will put it out eventually, but